Before we start this podcast, I want to definitely remind you of a sponsor for Fresh of the Word, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. In the world of wrestling where there's hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. So if you'd like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or even Zubaz, then drop them a line at 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. And also check out their enamel pin line. It's super cool.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what it goes. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it tomorrow. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, and this is episode 186. And the guest for this episode is actor Keith Randolph Smith, who currently plays Doub in the touring cast of August Wilson's Jitney. Directed by Ruben Santiago-Hudson, Jitney was the 2017 Tony Award winner for Best Revival of a Play. Set in the early 1970s, Jitney follows a group of men trying to hustle out a living by driving unlicensed cabs or jitneys. When the city threatens to shut them down, emotions flare and you see the fragility of their relationships. During our interview, Smith shared with us how he got cast as Doub, how this story still rings true today, his career as an actor, and obstacles that black communities still face. August Wilson's Jitney comes to the Music Hall in Detroit, 350 Madison Avenue, from November 12th to the 16th. For more information and to purchase tickets, go to BroadwayInDetroit.com. All right, let's get on to the interview with Keith Randolph Smith. You're part of Jitney. How did you get a part? How did you link up with this production?
Well, I was in a cast that was we had done it on Broadway 2 years ago, and I was a part of that. And this is the same production, so that's how I got involved with it. Ruben Santiago-Hudson, I auditioned for it in New York, and I had worked with Ruben a number of times before our director, and he brought me in and auditioned for this, and I was fortunate enough to get a part.
What was it about this Jitney that really you connected with? What was it? What really drew you to this revival of Jitney?
I just love the story, and I love the characters, and I love what Mr. Wilson is, how he's passing on and examining culture as we know it, especially African American culture, and specifically in his city of his home city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Jitney's set in the early 70s. And it's about this group of men trying to just, get by, driving these unlicensed cabs. Through the backdrop of the story, how does it, sort of mimic, what is going on in the world today? Is there any parallels that this story can, really parallel with what's going on in society?
Well, gentrification in a lot of major American cities and even smaller American cities where longtime residents are moving out because they can't afford the rents or the mortgages anymore. And owners of property are raising rents to exorbitant amounts. And that's not just happening in Pittsburgh. That happens in New York. It happens in D.C. where we are. I assume when I get to Detroit that I'll find out that it happens there too.
Yeah.
And
yes, it is.
You know, and it's sad because the people who live in certain places for a generation can't afford to live there. Like in Harlem, longtime residents pay affordable rents, or had been in their maybe rent-controlled apartments. But then when people move out and they do some refurbishing, that apartment that a person was living in that cost $700-800 a month, they now raise it up to $4,000-5,000 a month. And I'm like, well, who can afford that?
Yeah.
Most likely a working professional, but it's not going to be your postal employee or your civil servant. It's going to be, and not knocking people who have well-paid jobs and good positions. We all would hope that, to have that in our lives, but it's just sad for the people who have committed to living in a certain area through good times and bad.
What is it about this story that differs from other stories about gentrification or race within a city? What makes this a special story?
What makes this specific is the specificity that August uses in the characters, that I don't find them as caricatures. All of these, and it shows you examples of community being innovative and creative in coming up with ways to make a living. And it was by necessity. It was fueled by necessity. Maybe the yellow cabs wouldn't take people up to the Hill District in Pittsburgh because they were afraid for whatever reason. And so you have private cars, which is now our Lyfts and Ubers, that would take you home after your restaurant shift is over at a downtown restaurant, or when the buses would stop running, say, after 1 a.m., or after your shift is over at the hospital. Whatever it is, they provided a service for a community that was underserved. And that's what makes it specific. There's so many themes in the play that are very specific. Fathers and sons, that relationship, young couple trying to figure out how we're going to live together and how we're going to make a life together with their young child. The urban renewal, which back in the day used to be called Negro removal, as also a subtitle to people in the community, where you would take down a whole block of houses. Maybe they were boarded up, but then you leave those lots empty for 10, 15, 20 years until they're worth a whole lot more because of certain revitalization that's going on. Because you make services and then people will come. You put in a dry cleaners, you put in a laundromat, you put in a grocery store, you put in a bookstore, and you'll get more people to come by. You improve the transportation hubs and links. So he was delving in all those different areas in this one story. And though it sounds like a lot, it's well told. And I think most people, when they come, they don't see it as a long play. It actually goes quickly by.
And there's something that you mentioned, how like these unlicensed cabs are parallel to what our Ubers and Lyfts are now. And isn't it it's so unfortunate that like there's these things that people do in the cities, in the inner cities, just to survive, and they might it might be against the law to do so, but they do it to survive. But then later on it gets commercialized, and those people that originally started get pushed out of it.
Sure. Absolutely. What you say is it rings true to my ears and my heart, because I've seen it, not necessarily experienced it firsthand by not being a driver, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, like right now, there's the big marijuana boom, but what you're seeing a specific type of person like reaping the huge rewards of that.
Yeah, because you remember it was illegal in all 50 states, and now it's legal in some states and not in some others. And so you think about all the young women and men who've been incarcerated for that offense of possessing, using, carrying marijuana, and you go, wow, now it's not against the law? So should we let out the people who were arrested and put in jail and prison for marijuana out now?
Right.
Since it's not illegal? It's like, no, you got to go by the laws that were on the books at the time you came in contact with the legal system. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but and until we change laws, then we're going to have to deal with what's on the books now.
Right. When it comes to the character that you play in Jitney, how did you prepare to sort of get into the character?
I did research. I've been in a number of August Wilson plays, so I'm very familiar with Pittsburgh. I've been to Pittsburgh to visit, to work. I was born and raised in Cleveland, so I've gone to Pittsburgh to watch the Cleveland Browns and the Steelers play when I was a young kid. Their baseball team was one of my favorite teams as I was growing up as a little leaguer. I've read all of his other plays. I've been in some of the other plays. With any play, I always do a little research. Thank God for the internet and computers of fashions. Even though I was alive in 1977. And fashion, I looked up who was, what were the number one music hits, so what was the music like? But that was when I was in consciousness. Actually, in 77, I was in the military. So that's very relatable to my character. I wasn't in the Korean War, and I was after the Vietnam War, but I did 3 years in the Army. So my character and myself have that in common. He's older than me, but I've been around enough family and friends and to know about the times that I weren't alive, say the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, and I did some research on that about what was going on in the United States and with the wars that were happening, Korean War, World War II, and that kind of research, just a lot of knowledge about what was going on in Pittsburgh at the time.
Right. Speaking of your history, when did you first sort of get the bug to want to be a performer and be a part of being in performing arts?
Well, it was after the Army. I did the Army from 76 through 79. I had gone to school before the Army, but I just wasn't interested in school as other people were, and I kind of had a little adventurous spirit. So I decided to join the Army. And then after I got out, I went back to school. And while I was in school, I was mass communication journalism major at first. And I saw a play on campus, an audition tryout, and I auditioned for it. And I had such a wonderful experience. and felt a certain kind of kinship and home with the theater that I changed my major. And then I continued studying in Cleveland. And then I decided to go to audition for a conservatory in New York, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And I went there, and that's where I developed more so my skills and my process. Even though I had studied while I was in Cleveland, once I changed my major, I took a lot of acting classes and all scene design classes and work crew and learned about the theater. But then I realized I thought I wanted to do this as a profession. So that's why I decided to audition for conservatory in New York.
Was there anything that your time in the military helped you when, joining the performing arts world?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of discipline that's in the military, and that's been helpful in the way that my perspective about the acting profession, to have a certain level of professionalism and discipline, planning, being on time, attention to detail, doing what you say and meaning what you say and saying what you mean. Communicating clearly, because in the military you have to communicate clearly, especially if you're receiving orders or giving orders. You can't meander. You have to speak directly to what it is the objective is, what it is the mission is. And it's the same in acting. You have a mission, that is the play, and how best do you tell this story. And I think it takes a certain amount of dedication and discipline and professionalism to bring that in front of an audience who is paying good money to come and be a witness to the writer's work.
Right. And I see that you appeared in some films like Malcolm X and Girl 6. You were on
yes.
TV shows like Law and Order, Cosby, New York Undercover.
Yeah.
How did you first land your first break to be in films or TV? How did that come about?
Via my agent. After a few years after school, I got an agent, and your agent finds and searches out opportunities. And find there's a thing that they subscribe to, which is a breakdown of all projects coming up and what they need and require to tell the story. And your agent submits you for ones they think that are right for you, and you go in and you do your best. You prepare an audition, and sometimes you're fortunate enough to get a role. A lot of times you're not. So I audition for a lot more roles than I get. So I see a lot of plays, a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies. When I'm watching, I go, I auditioned for that, or I auditioned for this. And I go, wow, and I'm not alone. So I mostly don't get to. If I get one out of every 30 auditions I go for, and I'm including commercials on TV, voiceover commercials on TV and radio, video games, movies, industrial films, theater, and some people might consider and in no other field is that considered successful or working, because if you were a baseball player and you hit one hit out of 30 at bats, they would probably say you're in a slump. If you were a quarterback and you completed one pass out of 30, you'd definitely be riding the bench.
Oh, yeah.
If you were a basketball player and you made one field goal out of 30, you'd definitely be at the far end of the bench. But in acting, some people consider me a working actor that's successful, and 1 out of 30, and I'm doing well.
how do you, with so many examples of, like you said, that 1 out of 30 is like, would be like failure or be in a slump, how do you sort of reconcile in your mind that this is just how it is in the acting world?
Because I have faith, and I think a lot of artists have a lot of faith because they believe in something that they can't hold in their hand and they can't see. They believe it will come to fruition. I always believe I'm going to get a job. I just don't know where it is and what it is. But I always feel that I'm going to work. And the ones that I don't get, I kind of, in my mind go, well, they weren't for me. The ones that I get are for me. And, you got to take in human error. Sometimes maybe my agent sent me to something that they thought I would be perfect for, but after I read it and auditioned, and I go, well, it wasn't really a great fit. It was an okay fit, but the person that you see in the TV show, you go, oh, they were perfect for that role. I could see why they got it. And sometimes the casting people make an error. It's like, you gave a great audition, you fit well in it, but they chose someone else for whatever reason that is beyond your control. Could be nepotism. Could be, I remind them of an ex that they had that they don't like. There's so much beyond your control in what we do. So the only thing you can really do is be on time and prepare and be prepared. And that's what I always, when I talk to younger actors, especially in schools, I said, do these two things. Because everybody wants to boil things down to either in the numbers or easy to digest tidbits of motivation. I said, be on time and be prepared. Be on time, be prepared. And if I was to put a third, carry yourself professionally, even when you're a student, even when you're non-union, but there's a way of being that's professional, which is being patient, being kind. Just because someone happens to be a production assistant doesn't mean you treat them lower than yourself or not well. Just because someone answering a phone's at a casting director's office, because in a year or two, they're going to be the casting director. That PA is going to be directing their own film. So you professionally means treat everyone the way you want to be treated.
What were some of your, what are some moments with of some roles that you had that were really stick out to you? What were some really positive moments in your career?
Oh, wow. There's so many. It's hard to boil them down into a short list. This one I'm on now, playing Doub in Jitney, as we do this national tour. This has been a chance to practice my craft and learn about myself, and get a chance to learn about audiences in different parts of the country: LA, San Diego, Seattle, Detroit, Washington, D.C. 20 years ago, I played the son in Jitney when it was off Broadway. And so now I aged into a part that's one of the drivers. So playing the son was a highlight for me in my life at the off-Broadway production of Jitney. And I also did it in London when we went to London's National Theatre playing the son. Those were big highlights. I recently did a play in New York called Lockdown that dealt with the prison system, and about this guy had been in prison for 46 years and was continually denied parole. And it dealt with, well, what do we do with the aging prison population? Do you keep denying a person parole when they're over 60? Are they a threat to society after doing 46 years of being incarcerated? And that had a big effect on me too. And there's another play I did in Chicago last winter called How to Catch Creation by Christina Anderson that dealt with just the whole science, not necessarily the science, but the process of creating, whether it's art, whether it's writing. And in my character's perspective, it was a guy who had been wrongfully imprisoned, who got out and was single but wanted to adopt a child. So that's when you hear that, you kind of go, can that even happen? Can a single man who's been incarcerated over 20 years, can they adopt a child if they have the means? And so that was his challenge. So I've been very blessed and fortunate in what I've done as an actor to play in a number of different styles of plays, number of different sizes of houses, number of different actors. I've done my share of Shakespeare and Chekhov, Ibsen, Moliere, and classically trained. And I just enjoy all the different characters and styles of play that I've had an opportunity and I've been blessed to be in.
A lot of the roles that looks like in a lot of the things that you found roles in, seem like very, very important topics that are in these stories. Is that something that you are going towards even when you land that 1 in 30? Are you specific at going towards stories that have a good message and important lessons in it?
I wish I could say it was that intentional. Yes, as far as the choices of things when I do audition and do get an offer, yes. I won't do something that I think is degrading to the spirit and soul, and not just of me, but of the audience. So in that sense, I feel a certain kind of responsibility, but I usually go to the auditions that are presented to me. And I guess every blue moon, I'll actually hear about something and reach out to my agents and say, oh, I'd like to be considered for that. Are they seeing people for this part, or has it been cast, or are they just looking for star name power, or what's going on? But it's kind of it's almost like playing darts. You definitely want to hit the bullseye, but you can get a high score close to the bullseye. Right. What you're trying to do is hit the board and not the wall.
Yeah. You mentioned before that specifically with Jitney, you've been able to really learn about yourself in many ways through the different productions that you've been a part of. What did you mean by that? What are some things that you've learned about yourself?
I've learned just by portraying the character that I'm more patient than I thought I was, because I look at how my character deals with other characters and I go, oh yeah, I would do that. So I've learned from my character, and I also recognize some of myself in my character, which is in every character is always there's a merge of who the person is as written on the page and who you are. And usually those things come close together when you receive a part. It's rare that you get a part, or at least for me, that is totally out of your wheelhouse. It's like, I am nothing like this person, don't aspire to be anything like this person, never will be this person. My rhythm is different. My passions are different. And so in this respect, Doub has taught me about my craft, timing, because there's a fair amount of things that are humorous in the play, and by getting an opportunity of doing it over and over and over again, you get to craft your performance. And the only way you can do that is with the audience. And so I need their energy. We all need their energy. And we know you can feel when something's poignant or when something's humorous or when something's ironic. Though you may feel you know it, it's not until the audience gets there and that interplay happens that you kind of learn more about the script and more about the character, and in turn more about yourself.
You know, with touring with Jitney, what have you learned about the audience, and what do you hope the audience gets out of this story?
I've learned that no matter where you go, well, we're in the United States and it's a national tour, you realize that though everyone is specifically different, that we do have an American culture. So you'll find that things that are funny in D.C., well, we'll see in Detroit, whether they're the same funny in Detroit, whether they're the same funny in California and or Washington. What I hope they take away from it is that living is a challenge. Being a human being is a challenge. Life is a challenge, but it can be a fun ride. And the way you find that livability and fun is through relationships. And that's what this play is based on, relationships. I mean, it has themes in it of forgiveness, deceit, responsibility, all the great themes of all great stories and literature and theater and art and music, painting. Those are the things that where we find ourselves either looking through a window and observing and witnessing, bearing witness, or looking at a mirror and seeing ourselves reflected. And when I say that, I don't mean it too literally. When you look through the mirror, you don't have to see a black face to relate to it. If you not of a African American culture, because nothing human is foreign, you will relate. I mean, how many people have come up and said to us, it's like, oh, that's a relationship between the father and son, and it may be a female telling you that. She goes, that's me and my mom, or that's me and my dad. Or I know somebody, when they found out this information that Booster finds out, that they had that same reaction. Or you see a young couple trying to work through things, and it's like, oh, wow, because then you realize it's about perspective, and it's how two people see the same event or how they take it in. And you go, oh, well, neither one of them are wrong. They're actually both kind of right. So, damn, but that's the definition of tragedy, the collision of two rights. And so you get to see that both people are doing the things they think they should be doing for the right, what they consider the right reasons. But just because you're doing that doesn't mean you can't be at odds with the other person that you're in relation with. So it's the great themes, it's the big themes, but it's a very specific story. And I always find that what you find when you find the universal is because you got really specific, you know, and the universal is in the specific.
When it comes to the theme of relationships, and when you have these themes that can be transferable between different types of people, is there also within that things that will specifically touch a group of people, say the Black community, that will be a little bit more specific to them in this story?
Yes. As in any culture. there's certain benchmarks that when you hear them, when you see them, you recognize them innately. And that could be every and any culture: Irish culture, Jewish culture, Greek culture, French culture, Japanese culture, Korean culture, Australian culture, whereas somebody would do something and you would go, I understand that. Like in some cultures, to point at someone is like giving somebody the finger in our culture. You don't point at people. That's like the evil spirit. So you go in some cultures, they don't necessarily shake hands upon greeting. They meet foreheads. So this is very American in culture and very specifically African American in culture. And so the African American audience members recognize certain things maybe a second quicker than somebody who's not in the culture. And whereas when it's in your culture, you kind of go, oh, I see why they do that. Well, yeah, they do that so they'll keep from crying. That's where the blues came from. It's like, I'm going to sing about my wife leaving me, taking the kids, selling the house while I was on the road driving my tractor trailer. When I got home, there was another family living in the house, and I'm like, where's my wife and children? Oh, those people moved. I was only gone 2 weeks. It's like they knew her. Oh, my God. And so you write a song about it, and it's like, well, damn, that's a sad song, but it's got a really catchy melody and hook. Yeah, you have to define that ironic or dark humor in it to keep from crying.
With this story that, was written by August Wilson, and then you have this production by Ruben Santiago-Hudson. How did they go about making these characters, not be authentic and not diving into any sort of stereotypes or caricatures of what Black culture is?
Because August was a phenomenal writer, one of the best that America has ever produced. He's very specific. He writes characters that have their dignity intact, always with an objective in mind, always trying to do the right things, at least as far as their mind and heart goes. And so he doesn't travel and tread in caricature because that's not what was interesting to him. He was a chronicler of his times, and when he was in Pittsburgh, he used to write in coffee shops, maybe a bar, and he would listen to people, how they spoke. And so he wrote the way people actually speak. It doesn't, when you hear it, it doesn't sound out of tune, or you sit there and go, that's what that person said. I believe what that person said, and it feels true. He's even when someone is, you have value judgments as an audience member watching them. You go, oh, this person is a busybody and a nosy person. This person is mean. That's you labeling and judging them. Usually most people in life, I find, are trying to do the right thing. They're doing the best that they can do, unless they're not. And that's usually, a lot of times it's easy to tell when somebody's trying not to do the best that they can do and if they're trying not to do the right thing. You go, oh, okay. But they may be, even when they're doing the wrong things, they may be doing it for what they think is the right reason. But you go, well, no, actually that's criminal, and you should be incarcerated. I understand why you would rob the Federal Reserve Bank. It's because you don't have anywhere to live, you don't have any money, you want to help your mother. But have you ever tried to get a job? you're not going to rob the Federal Reserve Bank because that's just pretty much impossible. I'm going to go in Fort Knox and steal the gold. Yeah, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. That's not really going to happen.
Right.
You know, yeah. So, yeah, he doesn't label them. He leaves that to the people bearing witness who's sitting in the audience. You know, they're just people living their lives, being in relation, trying to do the best that they can do. And these people are always striving because he's not writing about the talented 10th. He's not writing about the 1%. He's writing about the working class people.
And how in 2019, with the current revival of Jitney, do you keep that authenticity that August Wilson, originally wrote for these characters? Is it just something that is just easy to do and it's just there in black and white on paper? How do you keep that authenticity?
I would say so. He's such a phenomenal writer. And this is one of the first plays he wrote. He was a young writer when he wrote this originally. Though it's the last one to get on Broadway, it was one of the first ones he wrote. He couldn't get it produced on big major stages. He had some local productions in Pittsburgh back in the early 90s. I think even as late as late 80s, 89, 79, 80, 81, 82. And then it got picked up for a production at the Pittsburgh Public Theater in 1996. And then he had done some rewriting to it, but he was also a more accomplished and a renowned writer by then. So people were curious. Well, let's read a young writer's play and see because you can see some of the themes in the play in some of his later works like Fences, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, Piano Lesson, but it's really there. It's really on the page. It's you don't have to add a whole lot of hot sauce to this meal. It's already tasty. Yeah.
Right. And just kind of, closing out this, this interview, when it comes to this story, what's your favorite part about it? What really kind of, hits your heart about it?
Well, the father-son dynamic, that's because I also had played the son 20 years ago in another production. That has always been close to my heart. One of my favorite parts is Youngblood and Rena, the young couple who are trying to make a way. And everybody has been in, most people have been in relationships and trying to make it work when you want it to work, but you're having a little challenges with communication and intentionality.
Right.
And then the whole thing of the gentrification and the urban renewal and how that affects our cities around the country. And I've seen it, and that also affects me because I definitely get caught up in my feelings when I think about these men trying to provide a service to the community, and yet the city wants to tear down the place and not put anything, they're not going to build any houses. They're not going to, it's just going to sit there. I'm like, well, how does that help the community?
This is my interview with Keith Randolph Smith, who is currently playing Doub in the touring cast of August Wilson's Jitney. Like I said before, August Wilson's Jitney is coming to the Music Hall in Detroit, 350 Madison Avenue, from November 12th to the 16th. And to get more information and to purchase tickets, go to BroadwayInDetroit.com. More information and that link will be in the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com. And I also want to remind you of my 2 new podcasts that have launched. Breaking Records, it's all-encompassing music podcast. The first episode with Dia Frampton from the sister duo Meg and Dia is now up. And then also my Detroit music podcast, Renaissance Soul, with my guest Big Tone as we talk about his new album, Big Shoes, that he did with DJ House Shoes. That is up now. So please go to freshthepodcast.com for more information about those podcasts, and then also go to any of your streaming platforms and subscribe and rate, especially on Apple Podcasts. Look for Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul. I would love to build these up really quickly, so please subscribe, listen, rate, and review. Share on your social network. That would be awesome. And just another reminder, you can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/freshtheword. For as little as $1, you can support everything that I'm trying to do, and I'm doing a lot here. And also, if you go to freshthepodcast.com and click on the support the podcast link at the top of the window, you will there'll be a bunch of ways that you can support Fresh the Word, Breaking Records, Renaissance Soul, and all that information will be in the show notes for the recent episodes and going forward. Supported so many people over the years, so if you could just drop $1 here and there, that would be great. All right, thanks again for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.